Hello everyone, it's Haley, and so in this video we're going to talk about the next upcoming lunation, which is going to be the full moon lunar eclipse in the sign of Scorpio on the 5th of May, 10:33 a.m. Pacific time. Adjust to your time zone. And so this is going to be our second eclipse of the season for spring of this year. We had the Aries new moon solar eclipse on the 19th of April, and now we're gonna have this one. It's a very interesting chart. So for the time of this lunation, we have a Cancer rising chart, very late Cancer rising, and so that means the chart ruler is going to be, let me back it up a little bit. So I'm gonna first talk through some of the aspects in the chart, and then I'm gonna pull some tarot cards to maybe get some more clear, defined messages around kind of themes that might be coming up in our personal lives and then obviously, whenever there's one person, there's more than one. So our personal lives and also the collective, what we might be seeing in the news. So yeah, we'll just get into it. So yes, we have a Cancer rising chart. And so the chart ruler is going to be the moon, which of course in this case is the full moon in Scorpio at 14 degrees. And like with any full moon, it's opposing the sun. And so in this case, the sun's at 14 Taurus. And in this chart, the lunation is happening across the 5th, 11th house axis. And it's very interesting because Mars is in Cancer in the first house. And like I said, the chart ruler is the moon in Scorpio in the 5th. The moon and Mars are what we call in astrology in mutual reception right now. And so even though so this happens when a planet is in the sign that another planet rules, while the planet that rules that sign is in the sign that the other planet rules. So it's a little topsy-turvy there, but so Cancer, the sign of Cancer is ruled by the moon, and the sign of Scorpio is ruled by Mars in traditional astrology, Pluto in modern astrology, and so we have a mutual reception. And so Mars in Cancer and the moon in Scorpio are both in their fall. They're not super comfortable in the signs that they're going to be in, but because they're in mutual reception and are kind of widely trining each other. And so a trine is kind of when two planets are 120 degrees apart from each other, and it's a pretty like beneficial aspect. It's pretty productive, like these planets are working together, and a trine is always in the same element, so in this case in water signs. So we have this really beautiful water-based Mars moon trine with mutual reception. So there's this kind of interesting, like moon Mars aspects can be kind of we find it easier to kind of channel our emotions into action, but can be kind of tricky combined with the eclipse energy, with kind of, there's a lot of markers in this chart of kind of like this feeling of urgency. Again, Mars, the chart, Mars with this mutual reception is squaring Jupiter in another cardinal sign, so kind of this pressure to initiate new beginnings and kind of start new things. And it's also widely squaring Chiron, and so kind of maybe acting from a more wounded or defensive, reactive place, especially if kind of shocking things come up. That's kind of normal to kind of feel kind of defensive around this. So the moon Mars can be kind of like courageous, pioneering, find it easy to direct our emotions into kind of a current that's forward moving, kind of expressing kind of the deep psychological content. Like the Mars in Cancer is very like Lord Byron and like a modern version Lana Del Rey, just kind of like moody poetry, or just kind of finding it easy with the moon in Scorpio. Or maybe not easy, but there's a potential there to kind of dive into some deeper psychological terrains and kind of get a better understanding on our motives, our drive, what's driving us, things like that. And then again, also kind of pointing to this kind of chaotic energy, which I guess we can say it's true for just the energy of eclipses, is just kind of, again, like I said in the last video, new beginnings and endings, initiations, closings of cycles. And in a typical full moon, we're looking at how is the moon going to progress over the lunation cycle, so from the full moon to the new moon. So we're only looking at a few weeks really, but for an eclipse, these cycles are kind of broader, so like over 6-month periods where we're kind of working with these themes. So just kind of taking note for ourselves, like what is coming up relationally, personally, around these eclipses can kind of give us some clues about what is being worked on in our personal natal charts and where we can kind of experience growth potentially in the next few months. And so again, the sun in Taurus is sandwiched between Mercury, which is now retrograde, and Uranus. So kind of this like destabilizing, kind of chaotic breakdown energy, not necessarily, so just like really a lot of astrologers kind of talk about Mercury, Uranus as kind of like the importance of taking care of our nervous systems. You can feel like a lot of energy is coming through, just kind of being like that live wire type energy. And then the other the other aspect I was going to talk about is within, it's very tight, it's in with 1 degree. Neptune at the end of Pisces is very tightly squaring Venus at the end of Gemini. And it's happening across the 12th, 9th house, the 12th and the 9th house. And this is pretty interesting. So we kind of want to be aware if we're kind of idealizing or pedestaling people, or kind of looking for a leader that maybe doesn't have our best interest in mind, or like or just kind of putting a lot of faith in something that doesn't have any substance to it. Alternatively, again, kind of that's a pretty creative aspect, like for acting, poetry. There's been a lot of very artistic aspects in all the lunations this year, which is interesting. I will say too, identity theft or cyber attacks, especially with the Moon Mars trine, and issues around the welfare of children, the places where children go, their schools. So we kind of want to be on the lookout for that. So I think I'll start shuffling the tarot cards and see if we can get some more messages around this full moon lunar eclipse. And again, also I looked at the Sabian symbol for 14 degrees of Scorpio. So the Sabian symbols were created, to my knowledge, by Linda Hill, who's an astrologer, and it's basically a symbol for every single degree of the zodiac. And they can get very like oddly specific and accurate, and kind of just like, they just give us some interesting archetypal images or themes to kind of meditate on. And so this Sabian symbol that the eclipse is occurring on, where the moon is called children playing around 5 mounds of sand. And a theme around this was development takes time and latent talent eventually leads to greater things. So again, kind of that kind of urgent energy, and then also kind of trusting the cycle that we're in. And then a shadow side to this Sabian symbol was being too serious and not knowing how to play. So if we have time or space in our lives to kind of have a little play around the week surrounding this eclipse, that can always help to take some of the tension, pressure cooker energy off a little bit. Okay. So what are some of the messages that we can expect around this Scorpio full moon lunar eclipse? What are some of the archetypes, themes, or energies that are coming through to be worked with? Scorpio lunar eclipse. Pull one more card and we'll get into it. Okay. Beautiful. Let's see. So, interesting. Okay. So we have the Queen and the Page of Swords reversed. We also have the King of Swords upright. Then we have the Ten of Cups in reverse. We have the Ten of Swords upright. And lastly, we have the High Priestess upright. Okay. Again, I'm immediately being pulled to the moon Mars square, and just kind of, there's something about this that's like we can kind of trust our instincts on something. We can kind of lean into this kind of like quiet inner knowing of something. And if something feels kind of dead or ready to be kind of released with that eclipse energy, especially in the Taurus Scorpio axis, that can have a lot to do with things coming out and just kind of something wanting to be released. And I'm also being drawn to Venus at the end of Gemini, and the last decan of Gemini. Pardon me, I'm gonna get a drink for a second. Okay, so the last decan of Gemini is ruled by this tarot card, actually, the Ten of Swords. And this kind of, again, this closing of a cycle. You can see that whatever this figure represents, he's done. And it's kind of, it can be kind of, it looks scary, but it's also just kind of like putting something to rest mentally that we've been struggling with for a long time. And kind of with this energy, just like kind of something could be simpler coming in. It doesn't have to be so complex. And so kind of leaning into what feels done. And if something feels done, maybe it is. With the Ten of Cups reversed, again, this Venus-Neptune square of just kind of like being let down or disillusioned by some ideal image, and just kind of like coming to some sort of awareness about something that we've been like crusading on, maybe some emotional crusade with this with a person in a relationship, or just some sort of mission that's run its course, or needing to look more deeply or interrogating what we've idealized, and kind of like with the ideal image, and is the image changing? Are we ready for something else, or is something else ready for us? I'm trying to figure out what to do with all of these swords, court cards. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that quote, because the swords kind of rule the intellect and that, like, the energy of air. And then of course with the eclipse energy and with Mercury retrograde, that's not really what I think about, like fear thinking energy. So things being a little bit muddled or confused, needing to wait for more clarity and more time. But then with the King of Swords, there is clarity. So it's kind of like, whose story or narrative or truth are we listening to? And is it the one that really, like, is the person who's kind of out here saying, this is my truth and I'm crusading and this is what I think, versus the more quiet knowing, like tensions between the two of like logic and what I know, and kind of this like undercurrent energy of like, there's something here, I don't know what it is, I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's just as real and just as here. And so kind of, if we can honor, create a little bit more space to kind of simmer on these kind of revelations that are coming up about things that are ready to be released and that are dead, and maybe we're just kind of still holding on to them for whatever reason that we do. And then also with the Ten of this 10 energy, this total, which is very eclipsed, you know, things like cycling out, coming to a completion, just very interesting. So yeah, I hope you have a good, I don't want to say good, I hope your eclipses, I hope you're safe and happy. So yeah, feel free to comment down below any themes that you're noticing as we head into the next few weeks leading up to this Scorpio lunar eclipse. As always, if you'd like to book a natal chart reading with me, my books are open for the month of May, and so you can reach out to projectvenusrising@gmail.com to kind of figure out a date and a time that works for you. And as always, have a great day.